Hello and welcome to another Blender tutorial. Today we're going to learn how to use the fluid simulator to interact with the particle system. In this we've got, it will look something similar to this. We have a box as a room, and then we have an emitter, and it's just right below the surface of this box for the room. And so it looks like it's coming up through the floor. And if you were to animate it, it would look cooler, but I haven't quite done that. So go ahead and open up Blender. And I'm going to move this out of the way. And then get past your splash screen. I'm going to turn on my screencast keys, so that down here you can see what buttons I'm pushing, like N, and it will get rid of this panel or bring it back. So go ahead and delete the cube, and we're going to add a plane. We'll actually keep it kind of small, using the S button to make it smaller, and position it about right there. We're going to create one here and one here later, but if we do it after we've animated everything, then it copies all the data with it. So we're going to work with this one until right to the very end, and then copy them to get the 3 different colors. And you can do this with many different colors. Like if you want to do 10 of these, you could. I just picked 3 because it looked nice. So go ahead into your go into your particle system and hit new, and then let's increase this number to probably 4,000, and we're going to change this to 300, and let's change this to 800, just so you can see what happens afterwards. Oh, and the lifetime right here, you probably want to set it to the amount that is set down here, and I changed this to 800 because we want it a little bit longer. So I'm also going to change this to 800. So now when you watch it, they will flow for 800 frames, and they just won't stop. Okay, so that is what we want. And then to give this all the different physics, oh wait, one thing first. Go down here to your second layer and click on it, and then hit Shift A, add mesh UV sphere. I'm going to turn down the segments on this to probably 16 and 8. So segments is 16, rings is 8. And then I'm going to hit smooth. And it doesn't really look smooth, but that's okay, because when we go, let's change this to cycles render real quick, and then go into the materials and add a new material for this sphere. I used a glossy, and this one can be white. So this is going to be the, actually the white one I used as an emitter because it looked pretty cool. So let's change this one to black. So we have a black glossy ball. And then we're going to go into the first layer again. Right click on this. And while this is all going, you could, if you have a good computer, you can let this just continue over and over and over again. If you don't, just hit escape and it'll bring you back to frame 1. But we're going to come into the particle emitter settings again. And we're going to go down here to object. And then where it says duplicate object, come up here, and it's probably sphere, but if you're not sure, go back into your second layer, right click on it, and up here or right here it will show you what it is called. And you can name this ball black, and then right click on this again, and just so you know what it looks like, we're going to change the viewport color to black too. So that's in the materials. You have to expand the settings tab, and then that's just for our reference more than anything. And then go back into your first layer and watch it. It shows up just how we want it to. Go back up into your particle settings, and I'm going to increase the size to about 0.2 just to see what it does. So I'm going to restart the, ooh, that doesn't look too bad. So we're going to go up here and click fluid, and that's pretty much all we're doing in this. Most of this is self-explanatory stuff. The main reason why we use fluid is because they interact with each other. Some of these, they just like go right through each other, while as a fluid, if they bump into each other, they kind of bounce off each other, but they also stick to each other. See, like if you can see some of this, if you watch it, they clump together like a fluid would. Yeah, right. I don't know if you saw anything like that, but on yours, hopefully you can see it. That every once in a while you'll see like 3 come out, and they'll kind of clump together and they'll stay together. It's that hydrogen bond in action. No, but we're going to now create. So if you hit the 1 to bring it to the front view, we're going to hit Shift A and add a force field, and we're going to just add a force for now. This will attract them to go up, but right now it's actually pushing them down because the force is actually an outward force. So we need to change the strength to probably a -15, and watch what happens. They will go to it. Let's raise that though. The higher you get it, the slower and less likely these ones are going to go up with it. So I'm going to actually restart the animation. Yeah, that's still too low. And you could also lower your strength, which I'm probably going to do, to probably -13. And it still is pulling up pretty strong. So I'm going to lower this down to -11. See, now you can definitely tell that they're clumping together like a fluid would. And that's not too bad, because we're also going to add another one. So you can just play around with that. That's actually a little bit high, so I'm actually lower this again to probably -8. Ooh, that's, if I just lower that a little bit. Let's go -9. That's probably perfect for what we're doing. Oh, maybe a little bit too much, because as the particles get more on there, they'll stick together and they're actually more heavy. So it looks pretty much like a liquid. So we're going to strength of 8. I'm going to try that. And this will probably all be just depending on, or not 8, we're going to do -10. This will all just depend on how far this is. There's so much, so I'm sorry if your numbers are different, because they probably will be. Because there's not really a way to tell you exactly how far without, well, there is, but it's not very accurate. So there is like a distance plugin, but if I drag from here to here, it's different because there's 3 axes and it's just different. So without telling you how far that is, this number is going to change. I'm actually going to increase the noise too, probably just 1, so it's a little bit more random. And it doesn't look half bad that way, but I also included, so if you hit Shift A, I included a vortex, and we're gonna snap it to the Z axis, and I'm gonna snap it to the X axis, and position it about there too. And if I remember right, I had like a strength of 3, and it spirals them, which is a pretty cool effect. I'm just gonna watch it for a minute, see what it does. Oh, and then before we get too much in there, hit Shift A, and if you want random stuff to happen, you can hit turbulence, and this random is pretty cool if you're want it to not react normal. So almost in anything you do, you're gonna want a little bit of random, because the world is random, and anything that looks normal will have a little bit of randomness, which is weird, because it's just that's the way it works. So I'm gonna hit the strength up on like 15, and as you can see, it already starts to increase some weird results, which is cool. I'm gonna increase this inflow. I think what that does is oh, I decreased it. My bad. I'm gonna hit that 0. See, now that looks pretty cool too. You can just play around with these results and get what you want, but I'm just gonna show you how I got my results that I got. So I'm gonna hit restart the render. Maybe I decreased it a little bit. If you decrease the inflow, it looks like you'll get a bigger swirl. And so if you increase that, I'm guessing you'll get a smaller. Let's try re-rendering or re-animating it. So I'm going to probably leave that at 0. On my other results, I had, let me tell you what I had. Oop, wrong tab. On my, yeah, I had it set at 0, and this was at 3, so that'll be just fine. But I also increased the noise on this one because I wanted a little bit of random. We can just set that to 1. And then let's make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Let's watch what happens to this. Let's move this swirl. So if you go to the top view, we're going to position another particle system here and another particle system here. Let's position this swirl, the vortex, in the middle of all of them, and it will suck from all of those into this. Let's also do the same thing with with all of them. Just move them all into the top view in the same position. And if you look at it, we have a pretty cool result already. But I'm going to redo that, and then go to my force and turn up the strength to probably -13, and it will pull up. Yeah, see, it will start to pull those up. I think I have a little bit too high. I'm gonna try -11, because we also got to figure we're gonna have some more particles coming in here. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. So let's go ahead and duplicate and position these. Then come to the particle system, and at the very top, click where it says the number 3. and then right click on the other one that you just duplicated and click the number 2. That makes them all separate from each other. If you didn't click that number 2 and you change the setting, then it would change it to all of them. Now what we're going to want to do is come down to the second layer again and duplicate the sphere twice, so we have 3 of them. Then we're going to come in here and click the 3 again, and we're going to click the 2. That'll do the same thing on the materials tab as it did on the particle systems tab. Then we're going to change, I changed this one to red, so I'm going to do that. You can change them to whatever color you would like. And I'm also going to change the viewport color to that same color, so that I know what I'm doing. And I may also change the white one, because I had a white, black, and red one. I'm going to change the white one to an emission. And if you set a color here, it should just keep the color if you switch between those. Unless there was a mixed shader, unless you change it to a mixed shader, then it would get rid of the color data that you stored there. So, let's go ahead back into our, let's do this real quick. Go to the red one, and we're going to name this one ball red, and we're going to name this one ball white. And to rename them, you can just click on them, wait a second, or double click on them, that's what it is. Just double click on them. So, now we can go back into the first layer, right click on one of them, and go to the particles tab, and go down to where it says render, duplicate object, and do either ball red or ball white. And do the same thing with the other one, but pick the other one. So you have 3 different colors. You have a black, a red, and a white. And then go ahead and hit Shift A, or Alt A to start that. And you can see it's got a pretty cool effect going on. And it won't look exactly like mine, but like right there, that'd be a pretty cool with those floating above it. If I were to hit F12, oh, my camera's in the wrong position. Let's go ahead and position the camera. So go into your camera view, and then right click on the rectangle, and then I zoomed in just a little bit, but you can hit the G button and the middle mouse button, and it'll let you zoom in and out. And hit R twice, and it'll let you rotate on a trackball. And then we're going to hit G and zoom out again with the middle mouse button. I'm going to focus up a little bit. Actually, yeah, right there. So this is how I position mine. Your results may or may not have floaty thingies. It's just, if you did it exactly like mine, it would. But if you position this just a hair this way, or you position this in just a hair in a different spot, then it would give completely different results, which is so hard to make a tutorial on because you just have to do it as a general rule. So please bear with me, because some of this just won't be the same, but the teaching of it will be. So you can do the same thing over and over again, and you'll probably get results different every time. You just have to know what you're looking for to make it look cool. And these 3 are probably your most used force objects, and just because they create most of what happens. There's one other one that they use, and it's harmonic, which is a really cool one too, and I'll probably teach you in the next tutorial, because I'm going to be focusing on these simulators for a while, because they're pretty cool, and I'd like people to know more about them. So if you go into your camera and hit F12, looks pretty good. It doesn't look like the render that I did quite yet, because we're not done. So we're gonna hit escape, hit Shift A, and then we're going to go up to mesh, cube, and depending on where your point was, it will create one. Mine was over here. I'm gonna move it into the center and make it big using the S button. I'm gonna hit the Z button to go in the wireframe mode. I'm only gonna make it as tall as I need to, but I'm going to, if you have stuff going below these planes, I'm gonna cut it off because I'm gonna go right above the planes so you can't see the planes, the emission, ones that are putting out the spheres. So I'm gonna go in the top view, make sure the camera's in there. I'm gonna make it smaller. I'm gonna move it over. I'm gonna do the same thing with the other axis, and then we're getting a little bit better. I turned this color a slight orange, or the walls just a slight orange, because I found that if you offset the color just a little bit, it gives a more natural look. It's more pleasing to the eye too. So you can go ahead and do that if you want to. If you don't, doesn't really matter. So hit Shift A. We're gonna add a lamp spotlight. I love spotlights. They just do a lot. Actually, we're gonna delete that. We're gonna change this light. So find your point light that you have and change it to a spotlight. And then go into, hit the 1 and position it up, rotate it, have it pointing right at the this, and then go to 7, make sure it's still pointing at it, and then go to 3, make sure it's pointing at all 3 angles. So you can use the 7, the 1, and the 3, and make sure that it is pointing at it. And you can look at it in the orbit views. And then we're going to hit Shift D, duplicate that, and we're going to rotate it. And you can do the same thing, check in all 3 views. So you can hit 3, looks like it's okay, 7, 1, okay. So it looks like we're okay with that. And then it's always a good rule to stick a light behind what you're shooting, or like what your camera is looking at, and it just gives it a little bit of more of a glow. It makes it stand out. So make sure it's pointing at it in all of the angles. You don't want it right back at the camera though, because then it just doesn't look good that way either. I'm gonna increase that so we can get. So I'm gonna go into 3, 1, and we're gonna hit use nodes on all 3 of those. And we're gonna hit 7 to go to the top view. And this is probably our more. Actually, I'm going to use this one as our more. You want it kind of coming from the camera, but not. So it's just offset a little bit from the camera. I'm going to turn up the strength to probably 500. And you may think that's a lot, but it really isn't. I'm going to change this into 200. I'll give it a little bit more. And then I'm going to change the color on all these. I'm going to change this into a yellow. I'm going to change this into a red-ish. You don't want them way, because then it'll change your results a lot. I'm going to change this into a blue. So now when you go to your camera and render it, you get a pretty decent result. I might even increase the one that's 500 strength. Might take it 700. And then for the rendering part, let's go to the rendering tab. I have it under GPU, so my graphics card is computing that. And if you want to change that, like if you have a CPU but you have a graphics card, come up to File, User Preferences, and then go to System, and then just hit CUDA, and then your graphics card. And then you'll also have to change it here. So it's kind of weird, not very user friendly that way. but you know, you win some, you lose some. Samples right here. I'm going to change this render at least to 100, so that when you're rendering this, on the last one you could really see them, but this one has a little bit of particles, like it's a little grainy. It's like taking a picture with those old cameras and they turn out just grainy. But well, that's pretty much the tutorial. I think I've got a little bit of everything that I wanted to put in there. Remember, you don't have to do exactly what I say, because physics, especially in the Splendor, are very unreliable, because anything can change how it looks. So hope that your render looks good, and hope you come back to see another one.